Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So let's go to the topic for today, which is something that touches all, not only humans, but also every living being in any planet, which is wealth. So let's talk about this topic from our point of view in human culture, and of course from the systematic point of view. So first of all, before we speak about these kind of things, for sure I know that many of you are very positioned in a political way, or political position, or an economical position, your point of view. So I respect that, but I will recommend you to, before to put your ideologies into question, just pay attention to the neutral point of view of this, okay? Before we say anything from our vision. So, and I want to clarify this before I speak about these issues, because sometimes maybe you can perceive that I have some point of views that maybe are similar to the right and sometimes more to the left. So I want to say this, that I don't have any idea of politics or economics. I don't care about those things. I consider myself a humanist, so I don't care about right or left and those kind of things. So I don't really care about that. The only thing that I say about right and left is that they are the seats that the old guys took in the British Parliament many time ago. So that's it. So we are going to see it from the neutral point of view. And also important to know that in this kind of topics, it's not necessary that we all believe the same or think the same. It's also even much more important that many of us can have different different point of views. Okay, so the important thing here is that when we are when we have these different point of views, we can help each other to remember us how to come back to the center. Okay, so that's why it's important to have many points of views in order to evolve, in order to grow. Otherwise, this would be a dictatorship, which is not what we want. So as I said, in Aries, in the month of Aries, when I say we should have many points of views, the main thing is that we can share point of views to improve, but not to insult the other or to believe that we are better or discuss. Okay, sorry. So respect, main thing from your point of views. Diversity is respect. So let's talk about wealth. What is wealth for us? So what is wealth from our human point of view? Wealth is to be able to have enough things in order to supply the three main needs: to eat, to sleep, and to reproduce. Once I have everything that I need in order to supply these three main things, these three main needs, and we can feel secure about all that we have, so I can consider myself rich. So why I say to be rich just by these three needs, by having these three needs secure? Because To be rich basically means to be able to govern yourself, to administrate yourself what you have, to be sure of what you have and be able to survive by that. So that's what makes you consider rich, because you administrate your own things. When someone is not rich, someone stops being rich when the three main things depends on someone else to give you the things that you need. That's what makes you to be poor, basically. So we have a really wrong concept of what is wealth or to be rich. We believe that to be rich is to have a lot of things, many things. But that's not to be rich. The word rich comes from reik, that means to rule what you have, to rule yourself, to rule something in the reality. That means rich. So who is rich? The one that is able to administrate what you have. The person that can have self-government. Okay? Wealth is not related with money. Wealth is related to the ability to handle and administrate what I have. When we understand this basic concept is when we can talk about all the rest. We usually make this mistake, and we have to transcend this idea that wealth means to have money or to have a lot of things. Actually, the origin of the word rich means to rule yourself, to rule your own things. It's not about money. It's about your own things. Wealth comes from the word all the things that is related with well, something that is good, all the goods. So this makes well, I am well. So the concept of feeling well is wealth. So it's not about money, it's about feeling well and everything is okay. Yes? So when I say your own things, we talk about three different levels: the physical, the emotional, and the mental. So let's talk about these three. So in the physical way, of course, we have the three needs: to eat, to sleep, and to produce. So in the first thing, if I am able to produce my own food, if I am able to administrate my money or resources in order to have the food every day, if I have my own place that doesn't depend from anybody, where I can sleep and be secure, and if I have the tools in order to produce something that I can exchange with others, so I am rich because I have my own things. I rule my own body, my own matter. So now the emotional. In the emotional level, you can all reach. How? When you know how to administrate your own emotions, when you know how to handle your own emotions, how to discern into what is good for you and what is wrong for you, what is bad for you, so you just decide, and you are free to decide. Also, you can decide to leave away some relationships, and you can decide freely to have some relationships. Basically, is to be unconditional, because if you are conditioned by something, you are not rich, you don't have wealth. When you are unconditional, when you administer your own emotions and can decide and discern by yourself between the good things for you, the bad things for you, that makes you emotionally rich. And then we have the mind. The wealth of the mind is when a person is open to learn every day. When a person is open to read a book, when a person sees a movie, goes into another culture, learns from a religion, talks with someone, speaks about, debate about stuff. When you learn another language, a person that is open to learn every day and is not closed to only one idea is a person that is rich in the mind, that has mental wealth. This helps us to understand that we don't have to relate wealth with money, because you can have wealth in your body, in your soul, emotional, or your mind. We can also talk about wealth, which is the spiritual wealth. Those persons that can go within, to look within, to find the inner truth and share it outside or do something with it. That would be spiritual wealth. So besides that, there is a lot of people that can be rich or have wealth into different levels. Like, for example, there are people that is rich in the mind but is poor in the other two. There are people that is rich in the soul and the emotions but is in the other two, or people that is rich in the physical but is poor in the other two. So of course that there are many options in life that that we can take as poor in many aspects of its life and rich in other aspects. But usually in the common process of life, usually people starts to keep this path going on when you have those wealth already covered, like beginning by the physical. When you have the physical wealth covered, then you can go into the emotional one. Once you work with your emotional wealth, then you can work in your mental and in your mind wealth. And once you did that, you go to the spiritual. That's how usually we do our path. Okay. So there are people that maybe can consider themselves that they are rich spiritually, but if you are not rich in your mind, this means that you clearly are not rich in your spiritual, because the spiritual is 100% open. And if you are not open to other things, if you are not open in your mind and you just keep in one path, like one religion, so you don't have spiritual wealth. You just have a belief, which is different, and maybe it makes you feel good. It's a belief. So of course that for sure there's a lot of people that can do this path of wealth in many different ways. Maybe you are born in a different way that you can do this in many ways, but I'm not here to speak about each one of those ways. I'm going to try to speak about the entire one that affects us as humanity. So in biology, in life, all the living beings that exist usually are looking for physical wealth, not the other ones, just the physical wealth. Why is that? Because our life, the life of every living being, is done in order to reach energy. So our entire evolution has been in order to find wealth in the physical aspect. So that's why they live to eat, they live to sleep, and they live to reproduce. And all their lives is about that. So they are trying to find the balance through these main needs in order to be rich. So this system of reaching energy has made throughout the evolution that millions and millions of years, these living beings have been developing tools in order to find a balance in this fight for energy. And this creates a symbiosis in biology that made everyone to live in kind of a harmony. Even though they are fighting for it, the system has been so perfectly designed through the evolution that they found a balance in what they need. This is why when we look into nature, even if they are every day looking for this wealth, they already are rich. They got wealth because they accomplish to manage every day what they need. Okay, so they accomplished to have wealth in the physical aspect. From all the animals, then hominids started to do something different. They found a way to sleep properly, not to be scared about enemies. And that made them sleep much longer. That made them sleep very well. And that meant better synapses in the brain and better connections to think. So they started to dream. By dreaming, they started to have new ideas that they couldn't see outside, but they could see inside. So with the hands, they managed to create tools in order to manifest their dreams into matter. And that's the difference that we got from other animals. Even if other animals dream, we managed to create ideas from the dreams because we slept better than animals. Because of this, we also created another system of survival, which was these groups of people that help each other. And that's what we call empathy and sympathy. We spoke about them. Empathy and sympathy are things that other animals also have. But humans started to use it as a way to transcend information, to transmit data through speaking, through sharing, through creating traditions, culture, and so on. So they use empathy as a way of survival. When humans started to understand how to manage the physical wealth, they understood that they could also transcend through time, not only surviving every day, but to survive through the entire year. When they managed that, when they knew how to handle that, so they had time to develop the emotional wealth through empathy. So in this way is how we start to relate with other people, and we develop the emotional intelligence. So suddenly, during this process of exchange with others, we start to exchange data, information. Others teach us something, we teach something to others. And through the we start to learn to know new people. We start to write, to sing, to create philosophies, legends. And when we start to do this, we create or discover our mind wealth. we open our mind. And because we start to go away and watching wider the world, we also start to look into the stars, into the cosmos. And that takes us to look within. The origin of the shamanism, the origin of all the traditions, of the totemic traditions, that brings us to spiritual wealth. Since we have done all this path, when we start to reincarnate, it doesn't matter from which wealth we start our lives or whatever. But this means that in ourselves, we all have this code of this path. That's how we did it. Until now, all beautiful. But what happened? The shaman says to the lead group that the spirits told him that that person must rule over all the others because the spirits tell them to do it. And why is this? To secure the family and the group. So that person has to show everybody that can lead, and have to, above all, show the enemies that can protect the herd. Okay, so it started in this way, the idea of the king. Rich is also one name of king. It comes from regime, is the same word, regime, the one that rules. So remember that we spoke about this once. This is not because people were bad and they wanted to control. No, this is for protection. They created this idea of the king or the queen in order to connect and unify all the tribe as one, with one symbol, in one person. That person could be in charge of protection and guidance. So it's not bad, it's perfect for that. So speaking about thousands and thousands of years ago, what happens here is that the family starts to grow, the tribe starts to grow, everything, the population starts to have much more wealth. So the territory is wider and wider, and suddenly the king or the queen finds enemies, the limits of the enemies, and they start to fight each other. So the king or the queen has to show their power against the others to protect their own. Let's go to something simple. What king or queen has to do? What happens if I do this? If I do this and I go speaking slowly and lower and being afraid and scared to watch there, and what would you think? Nobody did that. When you want to empower yourself, you have to put your chest in front, to move your hands, to walk straight, and to speak loud. So now imagine, like in nature, like the peacock, for example, the best image. Peacock, the lion, but the peacock mostly. The peacock has this big tail with many colors, and it opened it, showing everything, like saying, here I am, and I am the best. So as many colors it has, the enemies, the other, they will say, oh, this guy has too many things, I cannot fight with him. All animals, all beings in nature, we do the same. We position our bodies so they can see that we have power, and we put colors to show that we have things. The same thing thousands of years ago was done by the kings and the queens. Put all this gold and colors so they could show themselves that they have power. So if those person has so many things and colors and power, this means that behind, with all this wealth, can afford an army to protect, to fight. So just by looking at the king or the queen, the enemies would say, better we have to take care of ourselves with this. So what happened in history? That eventually some of these kings and queens that had a big lack of emotional wealth and mental wealth, they start to do exactly the same with its people, its own people, than they used to do with the enemies. So they started to control their own to show the power that they have. So through the next thousands of years, what happened with humanity was that these kind of people with a very great lack of intelligence and wealth in the emotional, spiritual, and mind, they started to control and rule upon the others. So from kingdoms, we went into feudalism, from feudalism to bourgeoisie, and from bourgeoisie, we went into politicians and how do you call entrepreneurs. So in the beginning of the times for humanity, to be rich, it was equals to security. In another part of humanity, of the history, to be rich, it was to be part of the group of the kings and the chosen ones. So for the next part of history, to be rich was a goal in between different classes, something that you have to reach to get into the next class. So in the next part of humanity, of history of humanity, the people was divided in two, the poor ones and the rich ones. And the rich ones here, they were controlling the other ones. So these ones here, the poor ones, understood that the rich ones were the bad people. And this is how the history shows us how the concept of being rich has been distorted into what we know today. So from the next, for history, in the 300 years that we are living, in the last 300 years, the poor people start to take power over the rich people, but in a very weird way. So what really happens is that eventually the capitalism takes power into the idea of the new systems, which means that they give opportunities for the poor people to become rich, but they have to suffer a lot because the system was done in order for them to not to reach, even if they to reach the wealth, even if they have the opportunity. It's very difficult to do it. So the system makes them believe that they can become rich so they can feel free, the freedom to be able to do that. But just as an idea. So this is what takes us to the revolution of the people that creates the communism. The communism is all these people that starts to manifest the idea that we should not be oppressed by this system of wealth. So we have to work all together in order to distribute the wealth so we can have all we need. So what was wrong with the communism? That the communism says that the government is the one that decides what is wealth. So the wealth that you can have in each one of the bodies, in the four things, in your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. The communism is the one that says you can have this amount of wealth for this amount of wealth for this, and you cannot go beyond that. If you do that, so this is wrong. So it's the government that decides for you. So you don't have freedom. So eventually in the social communism, the people start to wake up saying, I want to do this or express that or to do this or that. So this is why the system starts to collapse to itself and they create dictatorships. Why? Every communism ends up in a dictatorship because there is they signed an autarky that says only one person can tell you what to do because it represents the state, and that person is morally approved to decide what the population needs. So the reason why this system collapses is because by nature we are designed to grow and expand. If there is a system that tells you what you can't do and you are oppressed and you cannot express what you are, so that system is determined to fail. Because basically there's no one that can live just by an idea. Ideas don't give you food. And in the other hand, we have the capitalism, which is working today. But the capitalism is determined to end too. As you can see, the capitalism doesn't work because there are a lot of people that is poor still today. And why is this? Because the capitalism cannot manage the poor people because they give the free opportunity to grow, but this growth is about devouring everything, fighting to each other in order to reach money, wealth, and to have things. It's about accumulation. It's about having many things in order to become rich. So basically, both of these systems are wrong because both of these systems had tools to control and rule our own determination. We come back to the concept of what is wealth. Is the ability to rule yourself, to administrate your own things, to govern your own life. And these two systems, they are doing that. So any system that rules through laws in order to assure that you can have things is just doing that, but it's not about wealth. It's not giving you wealth. It is not making you rich. It's just giving you stuff. And that system gives things in order to keep themselves in that system and in the government. So I repeat, this doesn't mean that those two systems were wrong. They were the best we got in the circumstances that we were living or going through. But now we have another thing. We have networks, we have technology, we have another environment. So that's why these two systems doesn't work anymore, and they are destined to fall. So in order to make this change happen, the first thing that we have to do as citizens is to acknowledge that to be rich is not to have things, and that to be poor is not an option. When we hear some people say that we are doing all this for the poor people, or from the poor people will be the heavens, the kingdom of the heavens. When we hear these things, we can clearly hear these concepts of people telling, saying that they need the poor. They need to create a culture of poor in order to keep themselves in the power. Making the poor believe that to be poor is good, to be rich is bad. Let's transcend this idea. The problem is not the rich people. The problem is that we forgot what it is to be rich. The vibration for today is Wu. Statement for today is I am origin of all paths.